When someone tries to play you, they're really betting against their own future, and the universe never lets that bet win. Chosen ones, listen carefully. The moment they thought they were smarter than you was the moment they started losing control of everything. They laughed too early, they talked too much, they made moves without seeing the full board. And now, step by step, every single thing they tried to use against you is snapping back in their faces. This situation is simple, even if it looks dramatic. It's like someone trying to push over a mountain with their bare hands. Not only does the mountain not move, but the person ends up breaking themselves in the process. You didn't need revenge. You didn't need to expose them. You didn't even need to react. One calm move, one quiet shift in your energy, and the whole game flipped. Here's the fact they hate the most. People don't try to play those they see as weak. They only target what intimidates them. They only scheme against what they can't control. If you weren't powerful, they would have ignored you. If you weren't rising, they wouldn't be watching. Their behavior is the loudest proof that you were always ahead, even when you looked silent. And chosen one, before we go deeper, pause for a second. If this message feels uncomfortably accurate, that's not luck, that's alignment. So thank you, chosen one, for being here. Don't forget to pay this message back by simply pressing like and subscribing, not for me, but to help spread this message to more people who need clarity right now. This isn't hype, it's responsibility. You're part of a force that moves quietly but hits hard. Thank you for being part of that mission. Now let's get back to what really matters. They thought they were playing chess while you were barely paying attention. They whispered, they plotted, they tried to copy your moves without understanding your mindset. But here's the part they missed. You don't win by moving pieces faster. You win by seeing the board differently. While they were busy watching your steps, you were changing direction entirely. Think of it like this. Someone tries to trip a runner, but the runner was never racing them in the first place. That trip attempt turns into a fall, not for you, but for them. That's exactly what's happening now. The universe has a funny way of letting people expose themselves when they rush to win. They spoke too soon, they celebrated too early, and now reality is catching up. There's a psychological truth most people don't like admitting. When someone tries to manipulate, sabotage, or outplay you, it's because they feel behind. Secure people don't scheme. Focused people don't obsess. Calm people don't try to control outcomes they don't own. Everything they did came from fear, not strength. And fear makes people sloppy. That's why their plans didn't age well. That's why their stories don't line up anymore. That's why the cracks are showing. They built everything on shortcuts while you were building patience. They moved loud while you moved clean. And now the difference is obvious to everyone watching. You may have noticed something lately. The same people who doubted you look tense now. The same ones who laughed are suddenly quiet. The same ones who acted confident are scrambling for control. That's not coincidence. That's pressure. Pressure always reveals who played fair and who didn't. Here's another fact that should settle your mind. The universe doesn't reward desperation. It rewards alignment. You didn't force outcomes. You didn't chase validation. You stayed steady. That's why one move from you, even a silent one, was enough to destroy the entire illusion they built. They tried to play you, but the rules they were using only applied to them. Now they're stuck dealing with consequences they never planned for. Lost trust, exposed intentions, doors quietly closing, people seeing through them without you saying a word. That's the part that hurts them most. You didn't attack, you didn't explain. You let time and truth do the work, and time is undefeated. Chosen one, understand this clearly. Your power was never loud. It was never flashy. It was never about domination. It was about stability. And stability outlasts chaos every single time. People who rely on tricks always lose to people who rely on consistency. That's why they're exhausted now. That's why you're calm. They're replaying the moment they thought they had you, the message they sent, the move they made, the line they crossed. They can feel it now. That was the moment everything turned. Not because you fought back, but because you didn't. And here's the uncomfortable truth for them. You're not even done rising. What already broke them was just you staying grounded. Imagine what happens when you fully step into momentum. So don't get distracted by their confusion. Don't react to their regret. Don't slow down to explain yourself. Every step forward you take quietly confirms what they refuse to accept. They never had control. They just borrowed confidence for a moment, and now the bill is due. They played themselves. And you're still standing, still moving, still untouched. The universe already made the decision. All you have to do now is keep walking. And chosen one, before we break this down, step by step, pause right here. If this message already feels personal, that's because it is. Not everyone ends up here by accident. You're here because you sensed something was shifting the moment they tried to play you. So stay with me, because what comes next will connect dots you've been feeling but couldn't fully explain yet. If you're ready to see how one calm move flipped the entire situation and left them stuck dealing with their own mess, let it be known. Drop the number 777 in the comments as a quiet signal that you're locked in and paying attention. And if you feel like supporting the team behind this message, show it however you can. Big or small doesn't matter. What matters is keeping this truth moving forward so it reaches the people who need it at the exact right moment. Now, take a breath, keep your focus sharp, and don't rush away. If you're really a chosen one, you'll feel the pull to stay until the very end. Let's get into it, step by step, and expose how trying to play you became the move that destroyed them. Number 1. The moment they tried to play you, the universe clocked them as a problem. They didn't lose because you attacked them. They lost because they underestimated what happens when you stop playing small. Let's slow this down and get painfully clear, because this is where most people finally understand what actually happened. The moment they tried to set you up, copy you, manipulate you, or quietly undermine you, they didn't just make a bad move. They put themselves on the wrong side of momentum. And momentum is ruthless. It doesn't argue. It doesn't warn. It just rolls over whatever stands in its way. If you're really one of the chosen ones, this part won't just sound interesting. It'll feel familiar, like something you already knew but couldn't fully explain. You might have wondered, why did things suddenly start collapsing for them after they came at me? Or why did I feel calm while they seemed more and more unstable? That wasn't luck. That was alignment. The universe doesn't rush, but it never misses. They thought they were setting a trap. What they actually did was step into their own reflection. Every trick they tried to use on you bounced back because you weren't operating from fear. You weren't desperate. You weren't scrambling for control. And here's the part they didn't understand. People who move from desperation always reveal themselves eventually. Pressure exposes intention, and intention tells the whole story. Think of it like this. Someone tries to shove a moving train off its tracks using their shoulder. The train doesn't even slow down, but the person pushing gets crushed by their own effort. That's exactly what happened here. You were already in motion, quiet, steady, unstoppable. They mistook your silence for weakness and your patience for confusion. That was their biggest mistake. Let's answer the question sitting in your mind right now. Why me? Why did they choose you? Why did they watch you so closely? Why did they feel the need to interfere at all? Because you represented something they couldn't fake. You had progress without noise, confidence without arrogance, movement without announcement. That kind of presence makes insecure people panic, and panic makes people reckless. They didn't come at you because you were easy. They came at you because you were out of reach. You were the reminder that success doesn't need permission. You were proof that someone can rise without cutting corners. And instead of learning from you, they tried to play you. That choice sealed everything. Here's a hard truth most won't admit. When someone plots against you, they're already behind. People who are winning don't stalk. People who are secure don't sabotage. People who are aligned don't obsess over taking someone else down. Their attention was glued to you because they felt themselves falling further behind every time you moved forward. They watched your restraint and assumed there was nothing underneath it. They saw your calm and thought you were unaware. They thought kindness meant softness. They thought silence meant ignorance. What they didn't realize was that you weren't reacting because you didn't need to. You were watching them expose themselves in real time. And the universe keeps receipts. Every move they made stacked consequences quietly, not dramatic, not instant, just inevitable. Trust started slipping through their fingers. People stopped fully believing them. Opportunities stalled. Energy shifted. And the worst part for them is this. None of it looked connected to you on the surface, but deep down, they knew. Everything started unraveling the moment they decided to play games with the wrong person. You may have asked yourself, should I have said something? Should I have defended myself? No. Silence wasn't weakness. It was strategy. While they were busy talking, you were building distance. While they were trying to control perception, you were becoming undeniable. While they were burning energy on you, you were conserving yours. That's why one small move from you changed everything. Maybe it was pulling back. Maybe it was not reacting. Maybe it was choosing growth over confrontation. Whatever it was, it didn't look dramatic, but it was lethal, because it removed you from their game entirely. And here's the thing about people who try to play others. They don't know how to function when the game disappears. Now they're stuck replaying moments in their head. The comment they made, the lie they told, the move they rushed. They feel the shift. They feel the doors closing. They feel the pressure building. And it terrifies them because they can't trace it back to anything you did. That's the part that breaks them mentally. You didn't curse them. You didn't fight them. You didn't expose them publicly. You let reality handle it. And reality is far more brutal than revenge. Chosen one, understand this deeply. You were never meant to win by force. You were meant to win by stability. That's why chaos collapses around you while you stay grounded. That's why people who try to shake you end up dizzy themselves. That's why they look exhausted now while you're clearer than ever. They thought they were playing you. In truth, they were playing against timing, truth, and momentum. And those always side with alignment. So, if you've been wondering whether you imagined it, whether you were overthinking it, whether things really did turn the moment they crossed you, stop questioning yourself. You felt it because it was real. The universe marked that moment, even if no one else noticed. They made one move, just one, and it destroyed the illusion they were living in. You didn't need to celebrate. You didn't need to react. You just kept moving, and that's why the balance shifted permanently in your favor. Number 2. The second they schemed, reality turned against them. When someone plots in the dark, they forget one thing. darkness has terrible balance, and it always eats its own. Let's go deeper, because this is the part where people stop calling it coincidence and start feeling uneasy. What happened after they tried to play you wasn't random. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't timing. It was reaction. Action always triggers reaction, and the universe reacts fast when someone tries to manipulate what was never meant to be controlled. The moment they started plotting, things shifted, subtly at first. A delay here, a misunderstanding there, a plan that didn't land the way they expected. At the beginning, they brushed it off. Everyone does. But then it stacked. Momentum reversed. Control slipped, and suddenly nothing felt stable anymore. Here's the truth they weren't prepared for. You exist inside a system that favors alignment, not manipulation. When someone tries to move against that, the system doesn't argue. It corrects. Quietly, efficiently, brutally. Imagine this. Someone starts pulling random wires inside a machine they don't understand, convinced they're smart enough to control the outcome. At first, the lights flicker, then alarms go off. Then the entire system shuts them out. Not because the machine is angry, but because it's designed to protect itself. That's what happened here. You didn't need protection. The structure around you did the work. They thought they were 2 steps ahead. That's always the funniest part. People who plot assume the world operates on visible moves only. They think whispers are power. They think secrecy equals control. But what they never see is the layers moving beyond them, rearranging outcomes while they're busy congratulating themselves. Here's a quote that hits where it hurts. People who scheme believe they're smart. People who are aligned don't need to be. Once they crossed the line, doors didn't slam dramatically. They just stopped opening. Support dried up. Timing fell apart. Things they relied on began slipping away. And the worst part for them was this: no clear enemy, no obvious cause, just resistance everywhere they turned. Now answer this question honestly. Have you noticed how calm you felt while everything around them started wobbling? That wasn't you being unaware. That was you being out of reach. When pressure hits someone aligned, it stabilizes them. When pressure hits someone operating from ego, it cracks them open. Imagine this. 2 people stand in a storm. One is rooted. The other is trying to hold everything together with their hands. The storm doesn't target either of them. It simply exposes who was pretending to be strong. Another quote, simple and sharp. The universe doesn't punish people. It removes the ground from under liars. They didn't understand your role. They thought this was personal. They thought this was a competition. They thought they could win by pulling strings behind the scenes. What they missed is that you're not just chasing outcomes. You're part of a flow that doesn't stop for sabotage. You weren't here just to hit personal milestones. You were here to move forward cleanly. And when someone tries to contaminate that path, the system responds automatically, not emotionally, automatically. Imagine this. Someone pours sand into a river, hoping to block it. The river doesn't fight back. It simply finds another route and floods everything around the person who interfered. That's exactly what happened. You adjusted. They drowned in their own interference. Here's another quote that settles the mind. When you stop reacting, the truth gets louder. They thought you didn't notice. They thought your silence meant confusion. They didn't realize silence was the moment you stepped out of their reach. Once you stopped playing along, the universe took over the scoreboard. Now let's address the doubt creeping into your mind. Did they really do this to themselves? Yes, fully, repeatedly, with confidence. Every shortcut they took cost them stability. Every lie added weight. Every move made without alignment pulled them further off balance. They're confused now. You can feel it. They're asking themselves why nothing sticks anymore, why their influence feels weak, why people don't respond the same way, why things that used to work suddenly don't. The answer is simple. They broke trust with reality itself. Another metaphor. Imagine someone cutting the branch they're standing on, convinced gravity won't apply to them. The fall isn't dramatic, it's guaranteed. Here's a quote they'll never like hearing. You don't lose when someone targets you. You lose when you target someone. The trap they set was never for you. It just looked that way at first. In truth, it was a test of intent, and they failed it loudly. You didn't collapse. You adapted. You didn't retaliate. You refined. While they were busy feeding bitterness, you were feeding clarity. And clarity moves faster than hate ever could. Let's be blunt. Their downfall didn't require effort from you because effort wasn't the lesson. Awareness was. Once you stopped engaging, their plans had nothing to push against. A scheme without resistance eats itself. Imagine this, someone shadowboxes in an empty room, swinging wildly, convinced they're winning a fight. Eventually, exhaustion hits, embarrassment follows. That's where they are now, fighting an opponent who already left. Here's another quote to lock it in. When the wrong people push too hard, reality pushes back harder. They didn't play you, they exposed themselves, and exposure is irreversible. Once people see instability, they can't unsee it. Once trust cracks, it never fully seals. You rose not because you were protected, but because you were positioned correctly. Alignment looks like luck to outsiders. It feels like inevitability to those inside it. So, if you're watching all of this unfold and wondering whether to feel bad, don't. This wasn't cruelty. This was consequence. You didn't cause their fall. You simply refused to fall with them. The universe didn't choose sides emotionally. It chose balance. And balance always favors the one who isn't trying to cheat it. They plotted, reality reacted, and now they're left standing in the aftermath of a game they never should have played, while you keep moving forward, untouched, steady, and already past the point they're stuck trying to escape. Number 3. They tried to break you and accidentally gave you wings. They aimed for your collapse, not realizing pressure is how flight is born. This is the part they never prepared for. They honestly believed the weight they put on you would crush you. They expected exhaustion. They expected surrender. They expected you to shrink, doubt yourself, or disappear quietly. What they never considered is that some people don't break under pressure. Some people reconfigure. Every attack they sent your way was meant to pin you down. Every lie was designed to distort your sense of self. Every betrayal was supposed to drain your energy, but instead of collapsing, you adapted, you absorbed, you learned, and slowly, without announcing it, you started changing shape. Here's the gut punch they deserve to hear. What was meant to end you became the training ground that elevated you. Think about it honestly. If they had left you alone, you might have stayed comfortable. If life had stayed easy, you might never have discovered how strong you actually are. But they forced friction into your life, and friction creates heat. Heat forges steel. Imagine this. Someone keeps piling weight onto a structure, convinced it will eventually snap. What they didn't know is that the structure wasn't fragile. It was load-bearing. The more weight it carried, the stronger it became. That's you. Every added burden forced you to reinforce parts of yourself you didn't even know existed. They thought pain would weaken you. Instead, pain sharpened you. Another truth that stings them deeply. You didn't grow despite what they did. You grew because of it. Every scar they helped create turned into armor, not bitterness, not cruelty, clarity. You learned who to trust. You learned when to speak and when to move in silence. You learned how to stand alone without feeling lonely. Those lessons didn't come from comfort. They came from impact. Imagine this. A sculptor doesn't destroy stone by striking it. He reveals what's already inside. Every hit removes what doesn't belong. That's what they did without meaning to. Every blow chipped away false versions of you until only the real one remained. They thought you'd fall apart. Instead, you became precise. You didn't just survive what they threw at you. You studied it. You noticed patterns. You learned timing. You learned restraint. While they were obsessed with hurting you, you were quietly mastering yourself. That imbalance is why the outcome flipped so hard. Here's a quote that explains everything. Some people throw storms at you, not realizing storms teach you how to fly. Think about birds for a moment. Wings don't grow strong in calm air. They grow strong against resistance. Wind isn't the enemy of flight. It's the instructor. And every challenge they sent your way acted like wind against your wings. At first it felt chaotic. Then it felt demanding. And then, one day, you realized you weren't struggling anymore. You were gliding. They never noticed the moment you stopped bleeding and started adapting. Another metaphor, because this one lands hard. Imagine someone trying to drown a swimmer by pushing their head underwater repeatedly. What happens when the swimmer learns how to hold their breath longer than expected? The tactic fails. Panic sets in. That's what happened to them. They kept applying pressure, and you kept expanding your capacity. Here's another quote that settles the score. They kept swinging, not realizing every miss made you faster. The lies they spread didn't confuse you forever. They taught you discernment. The fake support showed you who was never real. The isolation forced you to sit with yourself long enough to realize you don't need permission to exist loudly or quietly. That kind of self-knowledge is dangerous to people who rely on control. You might have asked yourself at some point, why does this keep happening to me? Now you know, because you were being shaped, not punished, not targeted randomly, shaped. And here's the part they hate the most. You didn't turn cold, you turned clear. You didn't become cruel, you became precise. You didn't lose your heart, you learned how to protect it. Imagine this, fire doesn't destroy gold. It removes impurities. The longer it stays in the heat, the purer it becomes. They kept turning up the heat, thinking they were burning you. They were refining you. Another quote, sharp and final. They tried to bury you, not realizing you were a seed. Every negative word they spoke became fuel. Every disappointment forced you to level up internally. Every fake apology taught you boundaries. You didn't absorb their darkness. You recycled it. That's the difference between you and them. They let bitterness rot them from the inside. You let pain rebuild you from the core. They thought repetition would wear you down. Instead, repetition trained you. You learned endurance. You learned emotional balance. You learned how to keep moving without needing validation. That kind of strength terrifies people who depend on reactions to feel powerful. Here's the twist they never saw coming. The more they hit you, the less access they had to you. The more they talked, the quieter you became. The quieter you became, the harder it was for them to read you. And once someone can't read you, they lose control entirely. Imagine this, someone tries to punch smoke. The harder they swing, the more foolish they look. That's where they are now, swinging at a version of you that no longer exists. Another quote, because this one seals it. Pain only breaks those who refuse to learn from it. You learned fast. You learned that not everyone deserves proximity. You learned that silence is sometimes louder than confrontation. You learned that walking away isn't weakness, it's strategy. And every lesson stacked until you weren't just stronger, you were untouchable. They wanted to see you fall. Instead, they had front row seats to your rise. And here's the brutal part for them. They can't claim credit. They can't rewrite the story. They can't undo what they triggered. Because now you move differently. You think differently. You respond differently. You're no longer reacting to the world. You're navigating it. They handed you the raw materials for growth without realizing what you'd build. Wings. And the moment you lifted off, they were left staring up, weighed down by the same negativity they tried to place on you. You don't need to look back. Flight doesn't require an audience. The fact that you're airborne is proof enough. They tried to break you. Instead, they taught you how to soar. Number 4. The envy they aimed at you turned into the weight that dragged them down. Jealousy doesn't wound the target, it poisons the one holding it. Here's the reality they're trapped in. While they kept looping the same thoughts, the same habits, the same resentment, you kept evolving. They watched you grow and called it luck. They felt your progress and labeled it unfair. That's how you know jealousy had already taken root. People don't envy what they understand. They envy what reminds them of everything they refuse to become. They really believed their bitterness would slow you down. Instead, it exposed them. Every sideways comment, every quiet jab, every forced smile became proof that you were moving forward while they stayed stuck. You weren't just surviving the pressure, you were expanding inside it. That's when envy stopped being an emotion for them and became a curse they couldn't put down. Here's a fact most people miss. Jealousy drains focus. While they were watching you, they stopped building themselves. While they were measuring your steps, they lost track of their own path. Imagine someone staring so hard at another runner that they trip over their own feet. That's what happened here. And chosen one, if this message is hitting, it's because you recognize the shift. If you want to support the work behind messages like this, you can tap Super Thanks on your screen. Every bit helps keep this clarity moving forward. Now, back to the truth they couldn't handle. Your calm wasn't weakness, it was control. They mistook silence for softness because they don't understand restraint. Your energy doesn't chase, it doesn't argue, it reflects. Like throwing stones at a mirror, everything they sent bounced straight back, sharper than before. They tried to dim you and ended up living in the shadow they created themselves. Number 5. Everything they threw at you boomeranged straight back. What you send with bad intent doesn't disappear. It circles back and chooses its owner. This is the part they're struggling to understand. Nothing that happened to them was random. The chaos, the stress, the sudden breakdowns in their life didn't come out of nowhere. It came from direction. They aimed negativity at someone who wasn't built to absorb it, so it had nowhere to land. When energy can't stick, it rebounds. Think about this. Someone punches a wall made of solid steel, convinced it'll crack. The wall doesn't move. The hand does. That's exactly what happened here. Your foundation was too stable. Your mindset was too centered. Their negativity had no grip on you, so it turned around and started working against them. You didn't fight back because you didn't need to. You didn't argue because you didn't need to explain yourself. You stayed aligned, and alignment acts like a filter. Anything that doesn't match it gets rejected automatically. That's why their mess never became yours. Here's a hard truth. When someone tries to poison clean ground, the poison kills the one holding it. They kept burning energy trying to disturb your peace while you kept moving forward without even noticing half of it. Imagine someone shouting at a plane from the ground, thinking the noise will change its direction. It doesn't. The plane just keeps climbing. They tried to drag you into darkness. All they did was expose their own. And now, while they sit confused in the consequences of their own actions, you're still rising, untouched, steady, and already past the point they're stuck trying to escape. Number 6. Their hate was never confidence. It was panic in disguise. They didn't come for you because you were weak. They came because you didn't need them. This is where the truth gets uncomfortable for them. Hate doesn't come from strength. It comes from fear. They watched you stay calm while pressure built. They saw you move steady while chaos surrounded you. And instead of respecting it, they tried to provoke it. That alone tells the whole story. They mistook your silence for submission. They mistook your kindness for a crack they could pry open. So they tested you with lies, manipulation, and quiet attacks, fully expecting you to react, to stumble, to prove them right. What they didn't realize is that your calm wasn't passive. It was controlled. Here's the quote they hate hearing. Real power doesn't announce itself. It stands still and lets fear expose itself. You didn't reflect their hate out of anger. You reflected it by not absorbing it. Like shouting into a canyon and being startled by your own echo, everything they sent returned louder, clearer, and impossible to ignore. Not because you planned it, but because truth always has momentum. Imagine someone throwing pebbles at a mountain, convinced persistence will make it crumble. The mountain doesn't move. The thrower just runs out of stones. That's what happened. Your strength didn't come from proving anything. It came from being rooted in who you are. They tried to shake you and only revealed how unsteady they already were. Number 7. You were never here to fall. You were built to outgrow them. They weren't watching you because you were lucky. They were watching because they could feel you pulling ahead. From the very beginning, every move they made against you was proof of one thing: fear. Fear of your direction, fear of your consistency, fear of the fact that you kept moving forward without asking for permission. While they were busy lying, hating, and trying to slow you down, you didn't stop. You didn't argue. You didn't even pause. You just kept walking. That's what broke them. Imagine someone standing on the ground, shouting at a plane already above the clouds. They can yell all they want, throw whatever they want, but none of it reaches. That's where you were the whole time. They weren't mad because you were rising. They were mad because your rise reminded them they chose comfort over growth. Here's the truth they can't escape. People who hate your progress are confessing their own stagnation. You didn't win because you were focused on them. You won because you were focused on becoming better than yesterday. Every lesson you learned sharpened you. Every challenge clarified you. Their attacks didn't slow you down. They narrowed your focus, so let them sit with regret. Let them replay missed chances. You were never meant to stay where they are. You were always meant to rise, and now it's obvious to everyone watching. Number 8. The snare they built, snapped shut on their own hands. The moment someone sets a trap with bad intent, they quietly volunteer to be the first one caught. This is where their confidence betrayed them. They really thought planning in silence made them smart. Twisting stories, moving behind the scenes, smiling in public while scheming in private. They convinced themselves they were in control. What they didn't understand is that traps don't care who built them. They close on whoever stands in the wrong place. And they stood there, willingly. They assumed you were just another target, someone easy to confuse, delay, or knock off balance. That assumption was their fatal error. You weren't playing their game, so their moves had nowhere to land. Every scheme they designed turned into pressure they couldn't manage. Every lie needed another lie to hold it up until the whole thing collapsed under its own weight. Imagine digging a pit for someone else and getting so focused on the shovel that you forget where you're standing. That's what happened. Step by step, they boxed themselves in. Plans unraveled. Stories didn't match. People started noticing cracks they couldn't explain away. Here's the truth that ends all doubt. You didn't escape the trap because you fought harder. You escaped because it was never meant for you. While they're stuck dealing with the mess they created, you walked straight through, untouched, already gone. Number 9. The envy they fed turned into the cell they can't escape. Watching someone else rise while refusing to grow is how people lock themselves in place. While their eyes were glued to you, something important slipped past them. The ground under their own feet started cracking. They were so busy tracking your moves, questioning your progress, and hoping you'd slow down that they missed the warning signs in their own life. That's how envy works. It narrows vision. It traps people inside comparison until they forget how to move forward at all. They wanted to see you stuck. Instead, they built routines around bitterness, replayed the same thoughts, and stayed locked in resentment. That became their cage. You didn't put them there. They walked in themselves and shut the door behind them. Imagine standing outside a prison, arguing with the bars while the door is wide open behind you. That's them. They could have chosen growth. They could have chosen focus. Instead, they chose obsession. And obsession always chains the one holding it. You didn't need revenge. You didn't need to clap back. Reality handled it cleanly. While they kept shrinking their world with jealousy, yours expanded naturally. Their darkness never touched your light. It only made it more visible. Let them sit where they stopped. You're not meant to wait there. You're already moving forward, lighter, clearer, and completely free. Number 10. You never had to prove anything. Existing as you was the win. They didn't lose because you attacked them. They lost because you never changed who you were. This is the part that confuses them the most. They expected fear. They expected reaction. They expected you to shrink when pressure showed up. Instead, you stayed solid. The harder they pushed, the clearer it became that you weren't pretending. Your presence wasn't an act. Your confidence wasn't borrowed. It was real. They raised their voice, spread stories, tried to provoke a response, and you didn't bite. That silence wasn't weakness, it was certainty. While they were busy swinging at shadows, you were standing in your own lane, untouched. That's when the balance shifted. Here's the truth they can't escape. You don't beat real strength by challenging it. You expose yourself trying. Their jealousy didn't explode overnight. It fermented. Every time they compared themselves to you, it chipped away at them. Every attempt to compete pulled them deeper into frustration. Imagine someone drinking poison every day, hoping someone else gets sick. That's what they did. You didn't fight back because you didn't need to. You kept moving, and now they're stuck carrying the weight they created, wondering why life feels heavy, blocked, and stalled. You already know the answer. You won by being exactly who you are. Number 11. The knot. They tightened closed around their own neck. They didn't trap you. They rehearsed their own downfall. That rope they were so focused on tying wasn't aimed correctly from the start. They kept pulling, tightening, adjusting, convinced you'd be the one stuck, when it was over. What they didn't notice is that every move wrapped the loop closer around themselves. And while they're tangled, panicking and burning energy trying to break free, you're moving forward without resistance. If you feel that quiet confirmation in your chest right now, don't ignore it. Drop 77 in the comments and let other chosen ones know the shift is real. Stay here, because what's coming next connects everything you've been feeling but haven't fully named yet. They picked a fight they didn't understand. They saw you as someone manageable, controllable, easy to disrupt. That belief came from pride, not insight. They never looked beyond the surface. They never questioned why you stayed steady while others panicked. Here's the truth they missed. You don't win against alignment by bringing chaos. They came armed with tricks and noise. You came with direction. That's not a fair fight. That's a lesson. And the harder they tried to stop you, the faster they proved they never stood a chance. Number 12. The moment they came for you, momentum turned against them. The universe doesn't argue with bad intent, it corrects it. The second they aimed negativity in your direction, they set off a reaction they couldn't stop. Not because you wished it on them, but because alignment has gravity. When someone moves against it, resistance multiplies. They thought they were attacking a person. What they really pushed against was momentum, and momentum always pushes back harder. Imagine someone trying to swim upstream in a river that's already rushing forward. The harder they fight, the faster they tire. The current doesn't chase them, it just keeps moving. That's exactly what happened here. You stayed in flow, they fought it. And now look at the difference. They tried lying, twisting stories, playing dirty behind the scenes. But shortcuts don't beat direction. Noise doesn't beat clarity. And chaos doesn't beat consistency. While they were scrambling, you were steady. While they were forcing outcomes, you were letting progress stack naturally. Here's the truth that stings. When people attack alignment, they expose their own disorder. Every move they made revealed them. Hate showed fear, lies showed weakness, and the harder they pushed, the more their own life started cracking under the pressure. It's not cruel, it's cause and effect. They spent energy trying to stop you. You spent none proving yourself. That's why you're rising untouched, while they're stuck cleaning up the mess they created. Number 13. They tried to beat you and ended up losing who they were. They didn't break you, they abandoned themselves trying. The louder they got, the clearer the truth became. Strength doesn't scream, desperation does. They raised their voice, made scenes, tried to look powerful, but all it did was expose how unsteady they were inside. They thought pressure would scare you into shrinking. Instead, it revealed how calm you are when things get loud. They believed every move was dragging you down. In reality, they were digging straight through their own foundation. You didn't need to respond, explain, or defend yourself. The situation handled itself. That's what happens when someone acts from fear instead of clarity. Everything they do starts collapsing inward. Here's the part they still don't understand. You didn't win because you fought harder. You won because you didn't fight at all. They weren't just opposing you. They were pushing against something bigger than their understanding. And when people do that, they don't just lose the moment. They lose direction. They lose identity. They lose themselves. Now look at the contrast. You're sharper, more focused, more grounded. They're stuck replaying the same bitterness, the same schemes, the same regrets. They thought they were outsmarting you. All they really did was outgrow themselves in the wrong direction. Number 14. It was checkmate before they made a move. They thought they were playing you, not realizing the board was never theirs. People like that always assume they're getting away with something. They rely on silence. They depend on confusion. They count on the idea that no one sees clearly. What they never factor in is this: you see everything. You just don't react to everything. And that difference ended the game before it even started. They tried pulling you down into their mess, forgetting one key detail. You were never standing where they were. You weren't operating from ego, insecurity, or desperation. You were already moving on a level they couldn't access. So every attempt to bait you failed. Every lie they told leaked truth. Every trap they set folded in on itself. Imagine someone trying to wrestle fog. The harder they grab, the more ridiculous they look. That was them, swinging wildly, convinced effort equals control, while you stayed untouched. Here's the truth that seals it. When someone plays dirty against clarity, clarity always wins without lifting a finger. They underestimated what it means to move with alignment. They thought you were easy to shake. Instead, they walked straight into resistance they couldn't overpower. The game didn't end because you fought back. It ended because it was never fair to begin with. Number 15. Their collapse was locked in the moment they underestimated you. They mistook your silence for fear, not realizing it was restraint. They looked at your peace and assumed weakness. They saw you stay quiet and decided you were scared. What they never understood is this: you weren't silent because you were unsure. You were silent because you could already see where their actions were leading them. You knew you didn't have to interfere with someone actively destroying themselves. None of this was really about you. It was about what your presence triggered in them. Your calm highlighted their chaos. Your focus exposed their confusion. Being near you forced them to face everything they avoided within themselves. And instead of growing, they chose jealousy. So they lied. They twisted stories. They moved in the dark, thinking secrecy meant safety. But lies don't stack well. They collapse under their own weight. Now they're buried under everything they tried to throw your way, still convinced they're in control, still blind to the fact that the game ended a long time ago. Here's the truth they can't escape. You don't lose against someone aligned. You lose against your own intent. They thought you were easy. They were wrong. And now every word, every plan, every move is circling back heavier than expected. You didn't sharpen yourself to beat them. Number 16. You were built to withstand it all, not collapse under it. They thought pressure would end you. Pressure only showed you who you really are. Everything they did had the opposite effect. Every betrayal added fuel. Every lie sharpened your awareness. Every attempt to slow you down pushed you forward faster. While they were busy planning your fall, you were quietly rising step by step without announcing it. Here's the part they still can't process. You never stepped into their chaos. You stayed in your lane. You trusted the process instead of forcing outcomes. And that's why you're still standing while their world feels unstable. They lost balance the moment they chose to move with bad intent. You didn't take anything from them. They gave it up themselves. Imagine trying to burn a metal forged in fire. All you do is make it stronger. That's what happened here. Their drama became your training. Their manipulation became your clarity. Their storms didn't touch you because you were never meant to live inside them. They keep fighting a battle that ended the moment you didn't react. That's what scares them. Your energy shows them what they avoided becoming. Instead of facing themselves, they tried to dim you. It didn't work. You were never meant to fall. You were built to rise through it all, untouched, sharper, and already beyond where they're stuck. And you made it this far because this message was meant to find you. If what you heard today resonated, don't just scroll past it like it was nothing. Press the like button if you haven't already. It helps this message reach other chosen ones who need clarity right now. And if you're not part of this family yet, make sure you press the subscribe button. Stay connected, stay sharp, stay aligned. Remember, you don't win by fighting noise. You win by being real, steady, and unstoppable. Keep rising. The universe already cleared the path.